Hi YouTube, and welcome back to my random thoughts on Thursdays. This week I'm going to do another rant, this time on the topic of racism. Alright, so racism has been a lot in the news lately, and some of the discussions I'm seeing online are really starting to tick me off. One, I think a lot of people are misusing the term racism to fuel whatever agenda they personally have for one reason or another. Dictionary definition of racism is one group of people thinking that their group is superior to another group of people and thereby trying to suppress that second group of people because they think that they're superior. That, by definition, is racism. A lot of people tend to stick to races as, a skin color thing. And to be perfectly honest, I think we all kind of need to get over ourselves with the skin color thing at this point. I think we all know that we're all human. There is the human race. Also known as a species. I don't think that just because your skin color is different or your shape of your eyes is different makes you a different species. Does it? No. I think we're still all human, and therefore we're all one race. Race, species, same thing. Yes, we are very diverse with our ethnic backgrounds, and I think that people tend to lose sight of our cultural differences by just looking at skin color. And I think skin color is not a good measuring stick, if you will, of who people and what people are. At the same time, people are constantly way too politically correct and just getting way off base with all this political correctness just because people will use ethnic stereotypes and will be considered or called a racist because they're stereotyping someone based on their ethnic background. Talking about, someone who has an Italian background and making mafia jokes, for example. That is not racist because Italian is not a race. It's an ethnic or cultural background, people coming from Italy, or even the island of Sicily, I believe, is also, people tend to lump them together, although people who are Sicilian tend, I think, not to be wanting to be considered Italian, I think, if I remember correctly, but it's all ethnic. You could maybe call them an ethnicist if they're doing an ethnic stereotype, but you can't call them a racist, because Italians are light-colored Europeans, just like the rest of Europe. Just because someone who is from a French background happens to make a ethnic stereotypical remark about an Italian does not make them a racist. I don't think that if a French person says, "Hey, you Italian, was your daddy in the mafia?" I don't think that comment constitutes that French person feeling like they are superior to the Italians. They're just making a joke. And while it might not be an appropriate joke, it's not a racist joke. Okay? I think people keep mixing all this stuff up, and I think it's getting a little out of hand. I think it's really getting ridiculous, and again, I think people are focusing on skin color way too much. This whole discussion of white Hispanic versus dark Hispanic, etc. Who cares? You have a certain ethnic background in common with other people. It happens. There are stereotypes. Most stereotypes are based in part with a grain of truth. Not saying that it's true of everybody in that ethnic group, but there obviously has to be some truth to the stereotype, otherwise the stereotype wouldn't exist in the first place. And very often stereotypes can be amusing. I don't think that they're necessarily offensive. Some people might be offended by it, but I think what I'm seeing is a lot of people who are not part of that ethnic group being more offended by the ethnic stereotypes and jokes than the people within that ethnic group in the first place. For example, I think a lot of people who use the term African American tend to be white people, or light-colored people. I think most people who are of an African background tend to prefer using the term black. At least most of the friends I have, they're like, hey, I'm black. You know, and there are various degrees of shades of dark skin, but generally they say, hey, I'm black. They don't say I'm African American. Some people do, but that tends to come more from the European population in the US than it does from the black population in the US. And it's a preference that they have, and I think that if they prefer the term black, then that's the term I'm going to use. And I don't mean it in you know, a quote-unquote racist way. You know, I'm just calling that group of people based on what their preference is. Same thing with Native Americans. I think in that particular case, I think most Native Americans tend to prefer being referred to by their tribal affiliation. So, you know, if someone is Native American, I try and find out if they're Apache or Blackfoot or whatever their tribal affiliation is, and then I will refer to them based on their tribal affiliation, because I think that tends to be their preference. I try not to call them Indian, because I happen to have a lot of friends who are from the country of India, and they tend to be considered Indian. And so I know there's American Indian, but you know, there's a lot of, you know, political stuff going around a lot of these terms and names and things. And you know, at the end of the day, I wish we could just drop the labels. You know, I think Morgan Freeman is a big proponent of that, where it's like, you know what? I'm human. He's human. President Obama is human. Zimmerman is human. I'm not going to make a judgment as to Zimmerman's character, because I don't know the man, I don't know the situation, I wasn't there. You know, he was not convicted, the jury set him free, and, you know, it is what it is. I'm not going to comment further on that one. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, sorry, I am kind of rambling on this rant, but at the end of the day, let's drop the labels. Let's try and see past the skin color. Let's stop being so sensitive over ethnic stereotypes. And let's try and, you know, come together as a species, because guess what, people? We're all the same under the skin. Sure, some people are short or tall, fat and skinny, light skin, dark skin, curly hair, straight hair, but at the end of the day, we're still genetically, our DNA is the same. The only reason that our makeup, the way we look is different, is because of different geographical locations and climate and diet. If you go back far enough, you go back 100,000 years, guess what? We all came from Africa. So technically we're all black, I guess, if you think about it that way. People migrated from Africa into the Middle East, into Europe, Asia, Australia, and then eventually into the Americas. And our skin color and our shape of our faces, our height, width of our nose, etc. changed based on the local climate that the people settled into, and the diet they ended up eating based on what the local vegetation, local animals, etc. were available. And I think over time, as we become more and more of a global society, I think there's going to be a lot more blending and mixing, and eventually it's possible that we might all ultimately blend into a single species again, because we no longer live outdoors as much, we're more indoors, we have air conditioning now, etc. And so where a lot of the skin color and other changes in our features happen because of different climate and things, well, because we now control our climates where we live, that's going to become less and less an issue. And, you know, again, blending and mixing and people moving around the planet and everything. And I think things are going to start becoming more homogenous. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I think that's going to be a good thing. At least it'll be one less thing to fight about. We have plenty other things apparently that we like to fight about, and I think that's just part of human nature. But I guess I'm going to wrap this all up by saying, can't we just all get along? Thanks for listening. Until next week, take care. Bye-bye.